before we dig into the episode itself, Kyle, thoughts on a second season? Do we need a second season? Where do we feel? How do you feel about that?
If it gets a second season, I'll definitely be excited for that. I think that would be rad for the story to continue because I've grown pretty attached to these characters. Whether or not it's necessary, though, I'm not so sure. I don't think that we need to have this default expectation that all shows need to bloat themselves up to 1 million seasons in length. Like sometimes you set out to tell a story, you tell that story, and then you walk away. And like those are some of them. There are examples of some of my favorite shows are just single seasons in that way. Sometimes it's better to let a show end before it goes on too long and like the quality goes downhill. Like it gets that late season curse that so many shows get. It's complicated for me because I'm a Star Wars fan. I'll always love Star Wars and I'll always want more Star Wars, you know?
Right, that's right.
But I think that a season should be able to stand on its own as a story and doesn't necessarily need to have this, like, I don't know, audiences almost feel like too entitled to a story continuing. Like maybe that's the entirety of the story. You know, we're going to see these characters and the properties potentially. So short answer is yes. I want a season 2, but I don't need a season 2, and I will not be heartbroken if we don't get a season 2.
Unfortunately, this show that has actually brought the fandom together, people who have been angry at Star Wars, people who have always been there, we all have enjoyed this show, but the ratings of this show are actually, unfortunately, reflective of the worst ratings that Star Wars television has had. Do the ratings matter? Does it? I mean, you posted something today about I can't remember the quote exactly, but something to the effect of, as a fan, I'm not worried about the ratings too much. But what are your thoughts on what does that mean? Because it was such a great story that so many fans loved.
I mean, yeah, it seemed to be pretty well received on a firsthand level, just by the people in my orbit, the people that I had conversations with about the show. So the ratings being that low, I think is more indicative of just like less audience tuning in for Star Wars, which is kind of a shame. But really what I was conveying before with what I was saying on Twitter is that, like, I'm a Star Wars nerd and it's my job to watch the Star Wars. I'm not a TV executive and it's not my job to stress out about the ratings. Like I don't like, to be perfectly honest, like there's a lot of like rating and demographic information out there that I don't even know how to interpret because I've never concerned myself with it. I feel like a dog using a calculator. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like and yes, there's an element of self-serving there. I just like, want to watch my entertainment and enjoy it. On the other hand, if the viewership is low, that's all that matters to Disney, right? They don't care how vocal and this hardcore little small fan base is. It doesn't matter how beloved the show is. If the numbers aren't there, then they're going to cut it loose because it's not going to make them money. And that's just the end of the line. So does it matter? As if you're in the business of the TV world, then sure. But if you're just like watching entertainment, I don't think it really matters. And it's definitely not like something to tout as a cudgel in a conversation about whether someone enjoyed the show.
Correct.
It's like, oh, well, the ratings. Which I was like, well, who cares about the ratings?
Did you watch it and like it? Yep, cool.
Like on the other end of it, like even though I may not really concern myself with ratings, shows getting renewed keeps people employed, and you want the creatives working behind the scenes to create these shows to be successful and to do well and to stay employed as well. And so there's like a behind the scenes motivation for why you would really want the ratings to be good. You want your show to be successful. Looking at it from the standpoint of art, let a story end when it's ready to end, and don't just don't prolong its life for the sake of money. That's a very corporate approach, and it's kind of anti-art. But usually a middle ground is where you have to play nice with the studio, and then somewhere in that middle, that's where you get the great shows. Like I'm surrounded by Star Wars. Like it's everywhere. It occupies a very permanent level of space in my brain on a daily basis. I've already got that going on. I'm not willing to also take on the stress and the burdens of Star Wars like TV performance on like a corporate level, unless I'm also making a corporate salary. All right, there's some wiggle room there. But
sure,
I'm not getting paid to stress about these numbers, so I'm just simply not going to. I think that's the best way to summarize it. Thank you so much for having me, guys. This has been a fun conversation.
This has been
really
great.
good to see you.